Welcome to the first of the 52-week webinar series of the Internet Marketing Association. My name is Dominic Sirianni, and I'll be your guide as each week we host thought leaders from all aspects of modern marketing. Our goal is to be your source for information on the cutting edge of our industry. My personal goal when vetting guests is to look for those uniquely qualified to present on their topic. After each webinar, I hope you come away with tools you can immediately use to better engage your audience, or insights into the future of marketing that will help you stay ahead of the curve. If you haven't already joined us, membership in the IMA is free. You can sign up and learn more about our webinars at imanetwork.org. I'm so proud to have Rob Salkowitz as our first guest. Rob is the author of 5 books on business and marketing. His work has been published by the New York Times, Business Week, and Forbes, among others. At the University of Washington Graduate School of Communications, Rob teaches courses in marketing and strategy. Rob is also founder and director of content and strategy at MediaPlant. His firm recently completed work that included extensive research into the future of marketing. MediaPlant was financially supported in this endeavor by Microsoft because the trends occurring in marketing today are truly revolutionary. They encompass not just the role of the CMO, but also the CIO and CEO. Rob, thanks so much for your time today. I know you have a lot of great stuff, so let me turn things over to you.
Thanks, Tom, and this is a terrific opportunity. I'm really honored and delighted to kick off the IMA webinar series. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about some research that MediaPlant has done over the last year, sponsored by Microsoft, around issues facing digital technology and marketing and the collision of worlds that's taking place between IT and marketing right now. The title of this report is called Dollars, Bits, and Atoms, a Roadmap to the Future of Marketing, for reasons that you'll see in just a moment. So just a little bit of quick background about us and this work. So I've been in digital communications for about 20 years as a writer, a producer, an entrepreneur, and now as a consultant. We founded MediaPlant in 1999. We're a B2B strategy and communications firm specializing in clients in high-tech and other areas that have complicated value propositions that they need to explain to a business audience. About 12 years ago, we started doing a lot of work with Microsoft, who are our neighbors out here in the Pacific Northwest, around ways that new innovations in information technology are disrupting work and business. So the first work that I did in this area was something called the New World of Work, which looked at issues of how work itself is changing in response to technology. And that led to a bunch of innovations and developments at Microsoft, but also my first book called Generation Blend, which was about managing technology in a multi-generational workforce. Some other work called Young World Rising and Young World Shining about the impact that young entrepreneurs in emerging economies are having in creating social and economic prosperity. And my latest work is actually called Comic-Con and the Business of Pop Culture. It's a little more lighthearted take, but it looks at the converged future of digital media and entertainment through the lens of the San Diego Comic-Con. So that's my career up to this point, and as you mentioned, I teach at the University of Washington. MediaPlant about a year ago was asked by Microsoft to do this research series on the issues facing marketers in the technology world today. What's Microsoft's interest in this, you might ask? Probably a lot of you are familiar with the Gartner Research forecast that suggested that by the year 2017 that marketers would account for 60% of the IT spend taking place within organizations. And for that reason, companies like Microsoft that are primarily software companies that have been speaking for decades to the IT decision makers suddenly have to pivot and find out what's on the minds of these new customers, particularly people in marketing and CMO level organizations. So they asked us to go out and talk to lots and lots of people and do lots of extensive research to find out what were the burning issues that were on the minds of people in this field. So we conducted the research. We started in March of last year. It extended through December. We conducted lots and lots of interviews. We interviewed about 80 industry experts across all facets of the industry, everybody from CMOs and brand managers to agency leads to heads of startups to people in academia, nonprofits, all kinds of different perspectives and marketing sets of priorities. We attended industry events to get the pulse of what people were talking about. We did an extensive survey of the literature. We convened some focus groups. We did an awful wide breadth of qualitative research on this. And the goal was to identify the impact of these 4 primary emerging technologies on marketing organizations. And these are terms that we're probably all pretty well familiar with, right? Big data, social media, pervasive computing, which takes into account both mobile and Internet of Things and all of the things that are taking place that's getting computing off of the screen and out of the world of PCs and into the real world. And then finally, this area of cloud computing, which is not always visible to marketers in terms of what it does, but the effects of it are being felt in every industry. And the main question is, how are these 4 identified tech trends intersecting with things that are on the minds of marketing professionals? Some of the main findings that we discovered in terms of what's going on are on this slide here. So 4 main lessons. Number 1, separate digital marketing streams are converging. So when we go to marketing conferences or talk about these issues or see it in the literature, often we'll go to the big data track and hear all about analytics and new techniques for data visualization. Or we'll go to the content track and hear about native content and ways to better integrate content into sales and marketing delivery platforms, or what's going on in mobile, or what's going on in social. But even though these are presented to us as different kinds of things, they're actually tips of the same iceberg that's just below the waterline. In other words, they're manifestations of some of the same things that are taking place at the IT level. And a lot of the reasons that these are appearing at the same time and interacting in interesting ways are because of things that are happening at the platform. Lesson number 2 is that cloud-based tech startups are disrupting marketing. So we've seen the emergence of a lot of startups over the last 5 to 7 years, even despite the economic turbulence that we've had. A lot of them are coming as a result of concentrated investments and development of this ecosystem, whether it's incubators or entrepreneurship programs at universities and things like that. But what's happening is, because of the scaling mechanism of cloud computing, these tiny little companies that have a really good idea can instantly scale up, because they don't need to invest capital in their IT infrastructure. They can rent computing capacity through the cloud to scale up and down as they need to. And that gives them an incredible competitive advantage against more established companies, and means that companies can come out of nowhere and completely change the game, in 3 to 6 months, a process that used to maybe take years. The 3rd lesson is the business model for delivering marketing services is straining at every point. For all the people that we talked to and all the conversations that we had in the marketing field, the common denominator is the human factor, the thing that really powers marketing and makes you competitive and innovative. What's in your people's heads. This is becoming a real point of pain at the leadership level, at the level of recruiting talent and competing with financial services companies, with tech startups, and people who can pay these quantitative analysts a lot more money to be in these roles. Well, marketing needs them too. And how do you get that talent, and how do you get those skills into your organization? And then finally, the whole marketing ecosystem is changing, so that maybe the full-service agency that you've dealt with for years or decades no longer has all the services that you need in one place, and that you need to be taking a more fragmented and modular view of how you bring these services into your organization. And then finally, the role of marketers and technologists are blending, which is in a certain way intuitive, and in a certain way very disruptive, because marketers and technologists see the world in very different ways, and the conversations that take place inside organizations between the forward-leaning, risk-taking, creative marketing part of the organization and the conservative, engineering-minded, risk avoidance strategy that prevails in the IT world, those differences need to be reconciled. And those conversations are taking place, and the resolutions that are occurring are taking marketing and technology in interesting new directions. So what we developed out of all of this research is represented in this one sort of headache-inducing graphic that we call the forecast map. And just to sort of take this apart and explain it to you a little bit, so along the left-hand side, we broke the discipline of marketing up into 3 priority areas for marketers. Brand awareness, which is basically how brands expose audiences to content and imagery and create that sense of affinity with the brand. the ways that brands engage customers, the interactions and the differentiated experiences that you get either from the marketing, either from the sales experience and the physical experience, or afterwards. And then finally, this area of personalization and measurement, which is the way that we target our marketing outcomes and measure what comes out of it. And then we have 3 time frames that run along the bottom. So we call these the new now, which is essentially what's going on at the cutting edge of the discipline right now. Next, which is the things that we can anticipate and extrapolate immediately from what's going on. And then finally, the distant future, which we call sooner than you think. And we were a little reluctant to assign absolute values to these because the pace of change is elastic, and some of this stuff, somebody throws a switch and all of a sudden it's all there all at once, and some things that seem like very obvious and inevitable changes end up taking the longest. So in the chart itself, what we have is groups of innovations that we've identified and topics of interest to marketers organized around 6 primary clusters of innovation. So the first area, the first 3 areas on the left side of the chart, content, social, big data, these are things that are in the conversation right now. As we move to the right-hand side of the chart, you see things like physical-digital blend, which is how do we bring digital experiences into the real world? And how do we bring real-world experiences more closely into this world of digital data where everything can be measured and targeted properly? As content extends and becomes smarter, it becomes more aware of context, and it means that content will find you. Content becomes aware of who's looking for it and why, and what sorts of things that you've already seen maybe, so that the content experience becomes more implicit, more intuitive, and more intelligent as we move forward. And where this is all heading is what we call the connected customer, which is essentially a marketing experience that puts the customer at the center of this world of data, at the center of this sense of personalization and control, and at the same time gives the marketer visibility and understanding of where their investments are going, what's paying off, what levers they have at their disposal to turn that customer from a disinterested consumer into somebody that's considering their product, to somebody that is doing the transaction, and then to somebody who then becomes a loyal customer and a brand ambassador and convinces their friend also to become interested in the brand. So moving away from the headache-inducing graphic to boil this down to 3 of the themes that we really saw jump out of this. So if you take data on one hand, the sea of information that we're swimming in that marketers are struggling to find meaning, this idea of context, this idea of taking content and these disconnected experiences that we're trying to throw at customers across this sales journey. And then this idea of pervasive computing, which is getting data and experiences off of screens and into real life. If you mash those 3 together, what do you get? 3 big trends: mass personalization at scale, digital-physical blend, and this idea of marketing becoming experience management. If you take these one at a time, mass personalization at scale, again, it's kind of a contradictory idea, right? Because you've got personalization, which means one-to-one, and then you've got mass, which is one-to-many or many-to-many. But when you think about what big data is really for, why are we collecting all of this information? Why are we sifting through all of this to look at the trends and figure out why is one customer different from the other? It's so that we can provide each one of those customers with the experience of talking to our most personable and convincing salesperson at every point of contact that they have with your brand or with your organization. Right? We want each customer to feel special, whether they are in a digital world, whether they're in the physical world, whether they're in a social environment and talking to their friends, and have that personal touch of the brand reach out to them through the haze of technology. Related to that is this idea of a physical-digital blend, so that now people walk into a retail environment, and what are they doing? They're looking at their mobile devices, and maybe they're scanning barcodes, and they're comparing the prices that they see on the shelf to other offers that they might see online, or they're talking to their friends, and they're getting recommendations about products, and that whole world that they're living in is invisible to the people that are right in front of them. and to the sales associates in the store and to the people who are there to help them and maybe move them forward in those transactions or build an add-on sale or any of that stuff. And to be able to bring those two experiences closer together, to give people more visibility into what the customers are doing, what the customers are talking about, and also to give them things to talk about so that when they're in that digital environment that they can bring the physicality of what they're looking at to their friends into a social environment. Those things, that's coming. That's at the front end of what we're seeing with mobile technology. And then finally, marketing becomes experience management. So I think traditionally we're used to the role of marketing being primarily about demand generation and about exposing consumers to this idea of the brand, getting them to understand the differentiated value of what we're offering, and to put them in a proper mind frame to complete the sale. But what we know now about the customer journey is that it's not a straightforward process and it's not linear. And so every aspect, every point of contact that your customer has with the idea of your brand, whether it's through social or reputation or service experience or what they're hearing from other people, if that isn't optimized and ideal, it's suddenly marketing's problem, even if marketing doesn't have control of that aspect of the experience. So one of the tactics that we're seeing organizations take is, you know what, if marketing has to be holding the bag for a poor service experience or for a poor product experience, maybe marketing should have more to say about product design. Maybe marketing should have more to say about service delivery or real estate or some of these other more hardcore operational and financial operations within the enterprise. And that's pushing marketing into the forefront of the org chart. And as a result, I think we're seeing a lot more presence of marketers in the executive corridor and in the CEO's office. Specifically, some of the technologies that we see coming, some of the really exciting stuff that's going on. So apps for objects. Right? We know about smartphones and the whole app ecosystem that exists for your phone and your tablet. Some of us now have smart TVs, and there's app stores for your TV. Well, as digital communication becomes pervasive in everything, whether it's your car or the spaces that we occupy, our offices, our houses become smarter about the way that they control temperature and climate and things like that. All of these different smart objects are going to have their own app ecosystems being developed probably by entrepreneurial companies and by startups. When that gets really exciting is when the apps start to talk to the other apps. Right now we think of an app as a piece of software that does one thing. But apps get interesting and smarter and more useful if maybe that branded app that you're using also knows your location. It also knows who some of your friends are and what you've been talking about in a permission-based way, so that you can actually get a richer experience when you're using either the branded app or other things. And this takes a level of complexity that we're just sort of getting to that level of skill to be able to develop this stuff. But once that comes, and it's going to come through the cloud and through some other areas, that's going to make what's possible to do with apps a lot more exciting. Heads-up displays, so if you're familiar with this term, wearable devices. Wearable devices right now are kind of trivial. I mean, watches and even something like Google Glass is interesting in the 1.0 version, but it's going to get really cool once you have the ability to overlay digital data onto the physical world in much more seamless and tactile ways, so that you can reach out and touch the data, so that you can look through your glasses device and actually surround a physical object with information about it that's relevant to you. Anamorphic ads is basically going to simplify the deployment of digital media so that you don't have to create ads for different platforms, for different technologies, for different form factors, that you create one set of design and content and experience, and it automatically configures itself to whichever is the best way for the consumer to experience that, whether it's on a mobile device or on a website or what have you. Context-aware content, as I touched on the forecast map, really has to do with content that understands why somebody is looking for it and what else you've seen leading up to that moment when you're seeing the other content, or content that you can pull out of one environment and maybe pin it to your website or Tumblr it or reblog it, and it contains the same metadata and the same tracking information that it had in its native environment. These last three items are things that we get as we get toward the far end of the forecast map. Consumerization of JIT. What is JIT? Well, JIT is a manufacturing term. It means just in time. So just-in-time logistics, just-in-time manufacturing, it means that you're getting the product exactly when you need it. Now, some marketers may be aware in their peripheral vision of things like 3D printing. And I was at the Consumer Electronics Show earlier this year, and walking along that 3D printing aisle, the people that are creating this hardware and creating the ecosystem around desktop manufacturing, the ability to fabricate stuff in your home, they're looking for ways to extend this beyond the hobbyist niche into a mainstream consumer technology. And they're getting really good at it. And there's some really interesting ways that you can print household objects, you can print decorative items, you can print game pieces and things that play into other kinds of marketing campaigns. This is going to break eye level probably in the next 2 to 3 years, and we're going to see some really new ways to bring marketing into 3 dimensions. D2D commerce, so D2D means digital to digital commerce. This is a trend that we identified pretty early on last year when we were looking at the research, and we're looking at all of the ways that digital transactions are taking place, and digital information, things like your personal data, is actually a proxy for currency or a proxy for money and value, and that you can actually buy stuff by exchanging information or exchanging, participating in a survey, that sort of thing. Over the summer, all of a sudden Bitcoin exploded into public view, and you've got all of this purely digital currency as a thing. And Bitcoin itself is pretty problematic, and it's controversial and agenda-driven. But something like that is not far from happening. And what it might look like might surprise you. It might be transactions that you can do with loyalty points, or loyalty points that become the ability to negotiate a personalized price on things. So all of these things are things that are coming for marketers, and things that we need to be considering when we're both planning strategy and planning IT investments. Some of the big challenges for marketers, and again, this is information that we heard from our experts and sort of synthesized together. In the social realm, hacking the conversation. We know a lot of brands right now are setting up brand newsrooms to get real-time marketing through social media, so that when a topic comes up, whether it's Dunk in the Dark with the Nabisco Super Bowl ad, or that sort of thing, where there's a conversation that's happening in news or popular culture, that brands are able to insert themselves seamlessly and immediately into that conversation. Well, guess what? Pretty soon real-time is not going to be fast enough. You're going to actually be able to, you need to be able to anticipate those conversations, to be able to forecast what some of these trending topics are, and be able to influence the direction of those conversations, so that you have greater influence over what's being said about your brand and the way that customers are experiencing it. We're looking at unifying experiences across screens and space. So this idea of targeting the multi-screen consumer is really hot on the minds of media, and particularly broadcast advertising. We know that people are not just watching TV anymore; they're watching on 2 or 3 different devices. And how do you figure out and triangulate using data who's using what when, and what's their primary and what's their secondary? So this is an issue right now that we're hearing as a pain point in the industry. Of course, targeting and measuring content across the customer journey. I've talked about where we see that going in terms of what's going to be possible with innovations in IT, but just getting it right from a process standpoint and saying, what's an indicator of intent? How do we know that a customer that's shopping our screen, our products online, are they doing that with an intention to buy? Are they abandoning their shopping cart so that we'll come back to them with a discount offer so maybe they can save some money? Understanding the evolving dialogue that's taking place with customers in that customer journey is a real here and now challenge. Of course, anybody that works with big data, keeps them up at night. wondering how are we going to deliver these personalized experiences, make good use of all of this data that we're collecting without scaring the bejesus out of people and making them think that Big Brother is here and that we're reading your mail and all of this other stuff. This creepy factor is a real thing. It's very it could be a driver of regulation. It could be a driver of consumer backlash. So how do we manage to provide convenience and intelligence using data without crossing that line? And then finally, this idea of retooling organizations to keep pace with what's going on. We've talked about the changing shape of marketing. We need to talk about also, what do the organizations of the future need to look like in order for all of this to make sense. So finally, the big takeaways here. Marketing is bearing the brunt of rising expectations. Right? Every time something goes wrong, what happens? People take to social media, they tell their friends, back channels spread very quickly. Organizations are realizing that marketers that are holding the bag for this also have to hold the solution to it. And so we're seeing a redesign of marketing and marketing departments and the marketing ecosystem and the marketing discipline to provide that response. Collaborating across organizational boundaries is critical to tearing down these walls. So, marketing has existed in its own world in a lot of organizations for a long time. But you know what? If marketers are not having that conversation with HR about where they're going to get the talent, how they're going to develop the leadership skills to survive in a more dynamic and fast-moving environment, they're not having the conversations with IT about governance and speed of deployment and a strategy across the organization for how this IT is going to work and provide those capabilities. If you're not having the conversation with finance, and with operations, and with everybody else whose activities touch the customer, then you're not going to be successful. And then finally, the main idea in terms of the technology of marketing and digital marketing is that all of these trends, big data, content, mobile, social, cloud-based, these are connected. They're not siloed. Each one does not need its own individual solution. What you need to be looking at this as a strategic area of investment. You need to be looking at the kind of technologies and platforms where you can deploy these individual solutions fast and flexibly so that suddenly the service-based tool that you have, you can't get that data for something else that you might need it for. So this has been a huge amount of information in a really short amount of time, and I've been talking fast and saying a lot of words. I would encourage you, if you're interested, so we have published our research in 5 reports. Dollars, Bits, and Atoms. The second one is on startups and how they're affecting the marketing ecosystem. Social Life of Content, about content and new ways of getting it to people. Big Data and the Future of the CMO. And these are all very expansive, lavishly illustrated, and transparent in terms of where we're getting our information and who we talk to. To get these are available free at MediaPlant.net /report. You can also follow us for our current thoughts. If you go to @MediaPlant_US on Twitter, we post a few times a day, and you can follow us and engage in conversations. We don't want this to be a one-way monologue. We'd love to hear what everybody else is thinking and how these decisions are evolving in the real world. So thank you all so much for your time. This has been really a great opportunity. Thanks, Dom, for having me on. Once again, our contact information is on this screen, MediaPlant.net, @MediaPlant_US, or you can email us at newbusiness@MediaPlant.net. My name is Rob Salkowitz, and it's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, Rob. I can think of no more perfect topic for our first webinar than the future of marketing. And I think you did a great job of taking this huge concept and putting some painful graphics and some very interesting graphics up to help us walk through that. I do have a question, though. You talked about the future. I know one of the white papers MediaPlant has done is the future of the CMO. You made a comment earlier about the future of the CEO and the rising level of importance that marketers are having in overall business leadership. I was reminded of the Sarbanes-Oxley work that was done about a decade ago, and these concepts of CFOs moving into more generalized business management. Can you talk a little bit more about the evolution of the overall business leadership and how marketing is becoming a bigger and bigger part of that?
Sure. So we're seeing the marketing role expanding, and actually in that paper we have 3 scenarios for the future of the CMO. One of them, and all of them show the CMOs growing in organizational responsibility. The narrowest of those scenarios is that the CMO becomes much more of an IT decision maker, and we're seeing that in organizations that have a digital CMO or a chief digital officer that is responsible for promoting a lot of these initiatives, that is resolving a lot of the tensions that exist between IT and marketing in favor of marketing speed, agility, and capabilities. And so, as that grows, marketers need to become more savvy about the things that keep the CIO up at night: governance and security, access control, all of that kind of stuff. Second scenario sees marketing expanding in an operational way, and I touched on that in the talk about marketers owning the entire customer experience. And maybe that means owning more of the product design. Maybe it means owning more of the service experience. Maybe it means even owning the idea of where the stores are going to be, or that sort of thing. And a company like Apple, for example, is really design-led. It's a technology company, but design and customer experience is really at the forefront of the way that they think about these sorts of things. And I think in other consumer-focused organizations and service-focused organizations, at the very least, marketing is going to have a much louder voice in those conversations. And then finally, because marketing rises in prominence, and this idea of, building demand, protecting market share in a competitive environment, and, all of the things that marketers do, these are not compartmentalized. These are strategic responsibilities. And I think boards will tend to look at a CMO as somebody that has those skills that they can bring to the broader discipline of leadership. And we're going to see a lot more CMOs being tapped for the top job as companies move forward.
Thanks, Rob. I love that concept of the chief digital officer. I think what you're talking about is revolutionary and really will evolve over the course of the next few years. So I hate to do it. I could ask you questions all afternoon. I know there are a lot of listeners out there who have watched the presentation who are fancying themselves right now the first chief digital officer of their organization, or maybe another one. So before we go, if you can, one more time, just share the best way that our audience can get in touch with you or MediaPlant.
Sure. So you can follow us at MediaPlant_US on Twitter. You can go to our website, MediaPlant.net. I am at Rob Salk on Twitter. That's my personal account where I talk about all kinds of things, including marketing, but also some of my other interests. And you can email us at newbusiness@MediaPlant.net.
Thanks, Rob. And IMA members, I know you can grab a copy of Rob's presentation and chat more about this topic by visiting imanetwork.org. As always, we appreciate your time and hope you found a lot of value in today's session. We're open to hearing your thoughts, and we'd really like to engage with you. So if you have a suggestion for a new topic or you have questions about something that we're doing, please email me at dsirianni@imanetwork.org. We'll see you next week.